And ahead of the Lunar New Year holiday, the Korean government has been working to ease price pressures, launching a task force team this week to monitor the cost of groceries and essential items. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Park Min-jung, professor at the Department of Business Administration at Kumoh National Institute of Technology. Professor Park, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
So the government says it's trying to bring down grocery prices ahead of this year's 설날. What steps has it taken so far, and are people actually feeling the difference?
And actually, the government has launched a minister-level task force to stabilize gross prices and ease household burdens. Although inflation is around 2%, policymakers recognize that consumers still feel pressure, especially from food prices that have risen over time. So led by the Deputy Prime Minister and involving the Fair Trade Commission, the task force will address unfair trade practices, improper subsidized claims, and distribution monitoring. Authorities plan to track high-priced items, investigate possible collusion over abuse or market power, and take action when necessary. Existing these measures such as tariff cuts and discount programs and stockpile releases are also under review. However, these immediate relief may be limited, such as structural factors, including production costs, climate-related supply constraints, and global supply chain pressures continue to influence prices. So lasting improvements will likely require longer-term reforms alongside the short-term measures.
I see. And prices for key ingredients like flour and sugar have come down recently after companies lower prices. But many people say eating out still feels very expensive. Why is this?
Even though the prices of key ingredients like flour and sugar have recently declined, restaurant prices do not fall at the same time. So raw materials are only one part of the overall cost structure in the food service industry. For most restaurants, labor, rent, utilities, and delivery platform fees, and other operating expenses account for a larger share of total costs than ingredients. In recent years, wages have gradually risen, energy prices also have fluctuated, and commercial rents have stayed high. These costs are relatively sticky, meaning they do not decline quickly even if some input prices fall. There's also what economists call downward price rigidity. Businesses often raise prices when costs increase, but are slower to reduce them when costs decrease. Frequent prices changes can also confuse customers and affect brand perception, so restaurants adjust continuously. So as a result, even if ingredient prices ease, the broader cost environments and pricing behavior help explain why dining out still feels expensive.
I see. And there's also a heated debate here in Korea over imposing an additional tax on sugar. And some say it can protect public health, particularly among lower-income households, while other analysts say it could fuel inflation. Where do you stand on this issue, and what impact could it have on the country's economy?
Sugar tax is primarily a now public health policy with economic effects. In theory, it can reduce excessive sugar consumption, lower obesity rates, and decrease long-term healthcare costs. Evidence from countries such as the UK and Mexico suggests it can encourage product reformulation and modest changes in consumer behavior. In the short term, prices of sugary products would likely rise because lower-income households spend a larger share of income on food. The tax may be regressive unless revenue is used to support health programs or subsidize healthier options. Clear communication about the policy's goals and targeted reinvestment of revenue can help improve public acceptance and fairness. Overall, the inflationary impact would likely be limited as sugar products make up a small portion of the consumer price index.
Right, and turning to jobs, the number of employed people last month saw the smallest increase in more than a year here in South Korea. What's behind the slowdown and what needs to be done to address growing concerns over youth employment?
Yeah, the slowdown in job growth with employment raising by just about 180,000 last month, the smallest increase in 30 months reflects both structure and cyclical factors. First, the base effects play an important role. Strong hiring in public services last year makes the recent gain appear smaller by comparison. Meanwhile, the private sector remains cautious amid slower growth, high interest rates, and global uncertainty, prioritizing cost control over expansion. Youth employment now faces additional structural challenges. Many young people prefer jobs in large firms or public institutions, while most new positions are in services, care work, and smaller companies. Skills of this mismatch phenomenon between graduates and labor market demand further limits opportunities. So addressing these issues requires more than short-term public job programs, stronger university and industry partnerships, expanded vocational and digital training, and incentives for firms to hire young workers are essential for sustainable employment growth.
I see. All right, Professor Park, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.